Professor Garcia, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here with Dr. J. It's been an honor to work with her. And well, this is my first international conference. And I call it international because, well, I'm from Cancun. I live here in Cancun, and well, the talk is being presented in several places, mainly in Rockport. Well, so as I was telling you, I'm very happy to be here. It's an honor to that Dr. J invited me to work with her. This is the third time we've been doing this project, and it's been such an amazing experience to work with her and her students. Well, I'm going to say something a little bit about myself. I studied management, and I have a master's degree in management, but at the same time, I studied to be an English teacher, and now I have a master in teaching English. So all my life, I have been teaching either subjects related to management in English, or teaching business English or normal English. Now I work for a high school, and as well I work for Universidad del Caribe. The Universidad del Caribe was the one that gave me the opportunity to have this COIL interchange with Dr. J. And well, if there are any questions about me, I think we can answer at the end, okay? Yes, so now I'm gonna let Dr. J introduce herself.
Thank you, Professor Garcia, for the wonderful introduction, and also my great pleasure to work with you for the last 3 semesters as well. My name is Jay Zhang, and I'm a professor of special education from SUNY Broadport, the United States, and I teach special ed related courses such as Introduction to Special Education Assessments for Special Education, and I also supervise our student teachers in the field. So now you may have an idea. Professor Garcia teaches the business in English, which was one of her courses, and one of my courses is Introduction to Special Education. And it's we have 2 different disciplines. However, because of this collaborative online international learning, we were able to get connected and help our students to get connected and accomplish some joint projects. So we're so glad you're here today. And today we're going to just use about 1 hour time to talk about how to address the sustainable development goal of the quality education through COIL between Mexico and United States. So what we're going to do is, hopefully, we're going to share our journey of collaboration where we facilitate our students' learning experience and address the sustainable development goal, number 4, quality of education. And we will be happy to discuss our learning from the lessons and the strategies we used to facilitate our students' learning, especially as you can see this COIL project, we get students from United States involved as well as from Cancun involved. Different languages, sometimes different time zones, especially when the US is having the daylight saving time. Sometimes there's a 1 hour difference. And the different cultures, of course, different disciplines. How we overcome these differences and get connected and do some joint projects together. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you're going to take away some practices of building the students' intercultural competence as well as the communicative competence through our collaboration in a global learning context. It's not only the collaboration of our students, but also it's quite a collaborative journey for me to work with Professor Garcia as well.
Okay, so we're going to focus today's presentation on the Sustainable Development Goals that everybody might know, but they are sustainable goals that are backed up by the United Nations, and they are goals that were set in order to all the world to accomplish by 2030. So every teacher, every student, every citizen around the world should be aiming to reach them in order to get better life and a better situation for our planet. And goal number 4 is quality education, right? So what is this goal about? We need to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So our work is based on this because it gave Cancun students the opportunity, and USA students, the opportunity to travel without traveling, to getting to know more people, to getting to know more, to get other perspective, to get different accents, to, to have a better education by understanding and being empathic with other people, and these all make us grow as humans and as professionals. So I think if we can, thank you very much. As we all know, the education has been one of, we have been in this pandemic for almost 2 years, and it's been affecting all our lives, but education is what is our field. So these are some numbers that are included in the United Nations, in the Sustainable Goals page, when they say what is the lack of learning that we have been having as around the world. So I think I have to tell you the truth. At the beginning, when the professor presented the project, I could think as a teacher about the impact it will have to my students, but I couldn't imagine how different it was going to be because everybody was in a lockdown. So my students were afraid of doing it, but at the end, we have very positive results, right? So I think we're trying to do our best, students, teachers, but this has been something very nice. Well, these are one of the objectives of this United Nations is to ensure that all the students have access to quality and that all the students come back to school. We don't want to miss any student. And I think this project helped a lot, right? So I'm gonna leave you with Ms. Jane. I don't know, the next one is as well mine, okay. Well, global allocation aims, what is involved in this? Help countries in mobilizing resources and implementing innovative and context-appropriate solutions to provide education remotely, leveraging high-tech, low-tech, and no-tech approaches. So I think we have reached this goal because in both countries, some students have had problems with technology and they have discussed it together. How can they help each other, right? And they have been finding solutions. Of course, we have been coaching them and helping them, but most of the work has been done by them, promoting autonomy on the students. That is something that as teachers we all want. Number 2 will be seek equitable solutions for universal access. I think we have reached it, right, as well. Ensure coordinate responses and avoid overlapping efforts. We adapted our programs so the students will benefit and learn from what we did. Facilitate the return to students to school when they reopen to avoid an upsurge of dropout rates. We have done it. I think most of my students that have been with me in COIL here in Cancun, they have been motivated. And one of the motivation is to meet their partners. to meet their partners one day. So I think it will be a good opportunity to meet in person, either to travel to New York or to welcome their partners here in Cancun. Apart from the education side, some of them have kept their friends. So, and it's been really nice. Well, I don't know if I'm missing something, but if I'm missing something, I'll mention it later. Thank you, Dr. J.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Garcia. The same thing for my Broadport students as well. We are not only touch based on some education content areas, but also help the students to make connections. And I think these kind of personal connections touch their lives, maybe even go beyond our COIL courses. I completely agree. So in our course, we ask the students to review these YouTube videos as well as the UN Sustainable Development Goals, especially goal number 4, quality education websites, for students to have a foundation, knowledge foundation for them to go ahead to do some group projects. And we will introduce, Professor Garcia and I will introduce more about what we ask our students to do, the joint projects like the interviews and the SWOT analysis and the team presentations, as well as their self-introductions to each other. With all these happening in 8 or 9 weeks. It's a fast pace. However, it gives the students opportunities to go beyond their content area and beyond Broadport or Cancun, so that they can get touch base on the content of global, the one word concept.
I would like to say something here. Analyzing what we were gonna do, I mean, the project and the videos that the professor is presenting and everything, it made me grow as a teacher as well, because I had to face some challenges, not only my students. My first challenge was to understand how the other culture works. And in my head, I was thinking all the time, how am I going to present this to my students? Because we don't work like this, right? So that was my first challenge. And I really, really learned a lot from, I have, and I'm sure I will continue learning from Dr. J, her organization, her respect for people, respect for work. And it's been really, really, really nice. So this is something that I wanted to mention before I forget, that learning happened to teachers, not only to students, and in the lockdown, right? So what we have here, why COIL, engaging students in high impact practices. I think this practice, even though it was for a short period of time, it has had a great impact on them. Why? Because of the reasons that we have both commented, but they have developed common intellectual experiences. When my students talk to me, they go like, oh my God, I didn't know they did that. I didn't know they didn't do that. And when I listen to the response of the USA students, I'm surprised as well of what they have learned in an intellectual way from our students. Work on collaborative assignments and projects. I think this has been, for all the times, the most difficult part of the studying in general, because you have to interact with other person and agree on how to work. But here we have the time, the culture barrier, and well, they have to be open to new perspectives of working. And my students have a very set mind of what is teamwork, and now their mind has changed a lot, right? Build international learning communities. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future they still get in contact or they feel motivated to travel and to know more cultures, just because this was for most of the students the first exchange and that I have to stand out that it was in pandemic times, which makes it more interesting, I guess, and more stressful in a way. Discover the diversity through global learning. That is something that is the best that can happen to you, to learn new cultures and to be open, because remember that knowledge is power. So the more we know, the more open we can be to get more knowledge and get a better world and a better job and a better whatever, no? Gain intercultural experiential learning, definitely. Sometimes my students were asking me why the deadline for activities were on Monday. And then I realized that it was USA style. But I had to learn it as well, because usually our activities deadline end in a Friday. No, but this is something that I just have to learn as well. And now I think I'm gonna close my activities on a Monday as well, because I could see the benefit of it, right? So develop intercultural competencies, definitely. Everybody is developing something new, just like what I mentioned. No? Now I'm learning that closing activities on Monday is better, especially for university students at work. Better prepared to become global citizens. Now with this globalization and everything, we need to know about how to work with each other and to be open to cultures. And I think I'm just so happy about the results. I hope more people could do COIL the way we have done it, right? Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor Garcia. The pleasure is also mine. I have learned a lot from you and students, and also my students as well. So glad we were able to get it carried on even during the pandemic, and look forward to the continued collaboration. And also for the due date on Monday, I have to apologize for that, because
okay.
it was my policy, and my colleagues have various due dates. I have been using the Monday due dates in this course for quite several semesters. The reason is, as you mentioned, some of my students are working, they're teachers, and they're seeking the second certificate or the third on special education certificate. That's the reason why sometimes they do need to use the weekends to catch up. And this is the reason why I would prefer, but I really appreciate the your flexibility. So this is another example of doing COIL. We have to keep our mind open, including the professors and the students, and keep being flexibility, I think. So the next one is benefits of COIL from the students' perspectives. There are many factors that a student cannot do study abroad. So this is a figure from the NAFSA 2021, so last year. And for the students in the United States, higher ed institutions, the ones who go study abroad only has 1.7% across all the populations of students in colleges and universities. And the majority of the students in the United States don't even have the opportunity to go study abroad. And especially in the past 2 years during the pandemic, because of all the travel restrictions and health concerns, the study abroad numbers even going down. At the SUNY level, I know study abroad programs have been closed for almost 2 years. There are a lot of factors why students cannot do the study abroad, such as the cost. the time concern, the work, the family responsibilities, health concerns, and so on. And some of the students may not see the motivation why I need to go to learn the other cultures, to interact with people from other countries and cultures. And some of the students may lack of awareness that how the connections with the others will benefit them. However, COIL can be used as a very cost-effective solution instead of studying abroad. So for COIL, like Professor Garcia and my course, when we do the COIL project together, the students can learn anytime, anywhere, and with anyone. It's across country. The students can can schedule their meetings during the weekdays or during the weekends or at nighttime, whenever the team has the flexibility to make the decision of the schedule. And they learn across cultures, across languages, countries, and disciplines like what we do. And also, COIL gives us a great opportunity to promote diversity, inclusion, and the community engagement. It can also lead to study abroad program. Professor Garcia and I have been talking about we hope the pandemic will end soon, and when we get back to normal, or the new normal, we can probably think about the study abroad programs, because after our COIL experience, a lot of students get motivated, and Professor Garcia's students would you're welcome to come to Broadport, and my students, a lot of them say, now if I go to Cancun, I know I have a friend, and not just as a tourist to visit a place. So that's the connections COIL can make. So I'm going to share some videos that we can share with you from the students' perspectives. And as I mentioned early, in addition to the introduction video, team introduction video, we also ask the students to explore the quality education, and then to conduct an interview with a local education professional. Can be a teacher, can be a teacher aide, can be a school administrator or school district administrator. But the topic will be on education. And we gave our students some sample questions for them to start with, but it's their choice that they take our sample questions or they develop based on the sample questions to develop other questions. And here are some sample questions for them to think about, to learn about the school, and to learn about the teachers' practices, and also to explore some opportunities. Professor Garcia, would you like to talk about the SWOT analysis?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, as I mentioned before, my first major is management, I find a SWOT analysis fascinating, but I think it's misunderstood when we give it to students. What is the idea of a SWOT analysis? To analyze the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats of a company. That was the main, the original aim of the analysis. But now it has been used for many other things. We have a personal SWOT analysis, company SWOT analysis, or a situation SWOT analysis. So the idea is that this tool help you analyze the information that you get, divided on the internal good points of the company or the situation, the external bad points, the things that the company or that the activities that can be controlled by the person that is developing the activity, and the threats as well. So the whole idea is to set an analysis in order to get a strategy to improve it. But I think what is really relevant about this analysis is in the process of doing it, you get a lot of ideas and you have to organize the information. So when I proposed that the students did a SWOT analysis, that was the intention, that they analyze and reflect on the things that the information that they had from the interview. So maybe they realized from the interview that they didn't have enough information about the school or the situation, and they had to research. So this will help both students because they are analyzing, they are doing critical thinking, they are researching, learning new vocabulary, and well, being independent and practicing for a real, when they are working. I was going to say a real situation, but this is real, right? Yes, a situation when they are in their professional field. So I think this was one of the tools that has been more difficult for students, but later when they finish, they have seen the benefit of doing the analysis. Thank you, Professor. The next one is this is the rubric that we used, and in the rubric, as you know, when the teacher or the examiner provides a rubric, it is a guidance of what you should do, what is expected from you. So here, if you see, you have some of the questions to help the student analyze the information they had, and they will be graded as needs improvement, meets the expectation, or it's halfway. No? So I think this, as a student, if you follow this rubric, you know what is expected from you. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor Garcia, for explaining the SWOT analysis. And I think this is a benefit of cross-disciplinary collaboration because I borrowed this from Garcia and we learn from each other. This is a collaborative journey and it's continued. So by the end of our COIL project, usually will last us 8 to 9 weeks. So we hope our students will gain the following learning outcomes. They gain cross-cultural, cross-linguistic, and cross-disciplinary diverse experience. They develop knowledge and skills on educational practices across US and Mexico. They demonstrate communication skills across culture and disciplinary using technology. And also they be better prepared to become a global citizen, which will benefit them no matter what career they are entering into.
Okay, these are some of the tools that we decided as teachers that were going to be used, but students were kind of free to choose. These were just suggestions, and this is what they used. Google Classroom, because in Universidad del Caribe we use Google Classroom. Padlet, because it was like neutral. Zoom, because it was one of the first meeting of online tools. Blackboard Collaborate, it's something that they use in Sony Blackboard. WhatsApp is universal. Google Docs, Google Slides, YouTube. But the students were given the suggestions and they had to explore them and check what worked for them. For example, yesterday evening, we were working with a group and we assigned breakout rooms in Zoom. And when the professor and I visited the rooms, we realized that they were in the room, but they were chatting using another app. So they were fulfilling our requirement, but they felt more confident and more relaxed using another way. And the important thing was the result in this case. They were working and they were communicating. So these are just some suggestions. And now we're gonna present some of the examples, right?
Yes, the Google Classroom.
Yes, the Google Classroom. This is our Google Classroom that we used last year. And it was very nice to use it because we had all the students together in a place. So both the students were receiving the same information. And it was quite challenging because sometimes it was complicated for a style to understand what was going on the other side of the project, but we divided it in weeks and the activities they had to deliver. And it was very nice. It was very useful for organization and for everybody to get the same information. Dr. J made some videos explaining the activities that had to be done. So something that needs to be taken into account is that COIL is more work for everybody. But as professors, we are happy to be able to share and to make our students grow. And I think when they realize that it's more work, but they grow, is where the benefit comes, right? Because this is our Google Classroom only for COIL. I have my Google Classroom for my class activities, and students have like sometimes double activities, sometimes we are flexible with time, but they are working in parallel with 2 activities, no? So that's Google Classroom. And as well, it was a very nice way to communicate with everybody. Because, for example, it was Independence Day, and I posted something about Independence Day. And then, so both the students knew, no, it's okay, professor, don't worry. Both the students knew that it was Independence. Of course, Mexicans knew, but maybe the students from Brockport didn't know. So that day, nobody will answer their phones because they were on holiday. So it was a very nice way of communication. Thank you, Professor. The students had to read about about culture, and they had to do this activity. I know that is not very clear. The intention is not for you to read because the print is very small, but they have to write facts about the other cultures. I mean, my students have to write facts about USA, and the USA students have to write facts and ideas about Mexico. And when I was reading this, I was like surprised on how much or how little they know about each other, no? Being neighbors, as they mentioned. So this was an activity that was suggested by Dr. J, and it was really, really, really nice to know. And it made the students reflect and try to research more about the other culture. This was one of the first activities they did. They really enjoyed. This one was the most elaborate one that I found from this side, Mexican side. I don't know if about USA side. Another thing is that there is co-evaluation because they co-evaluate each other. There is evaluation from us. And well, I can see other teams, other culture assignments as well, which is interesting. I don't know if you want to comment something on this, Professor?
Yeah, sure, Professor Garcia, thank you. So my students also, our students do it as well. Like my Brockport students also do the conceptual wheel. And as Professor Garcia mentioned, this activity happened before the introduction video is due, so they can have a better understanding about others' culture. And then when they get to do the introduction and get connected even further, usually the dialogue is deeper, not just to put a surface level saying what is your language and what are some examples of holidays, what is food, something like that. Those are superficial level of the culture. But our students also talk about the deep level, talk about the history, talk about the modern facts, and also talk about things like the deeper, such as the morale and the order of the society, etc., and maybe the respect, the the other things. So the students' conversations get more deeper and more meaningful, and it also helps them to break the stereotypes, because even when they did their research, sometimes the research can be outdated, and sometimes the research may not reflect on the current situation. So when they did this and when they communicate with each other, they learn even more from each other. I think the next one is another introduction video our students did. So they did introduction videos together. So this is a part of their final team presentation. After they did the interview, they comparing the education practices across the two countries. This is one of the examples.
So what I learned about the comparison between the educational systems in the United States and Mexico is that the cultural celebrations are different. So for example, in Mexico, there's a lot more dancing. They celebrate Day of the Dead, whereas in the United States, we celebrate Halloween. And in schools, these are also present. So I guess the similarity there is that it is celebrated in schools. However, the holidays and the events are just a little bit different. So patriotism is actually a lot different as well. So, for example, in the United States, a lot of our elementary classrooms sing the pledge before every class and the national anthem before sports games. And in Mexico, that's not as common, and there actually aren't flags usually hung up inside of classrooms. So that's just a little bit different than the United States. Another thing is testing and grading. So for example, in the United States, we have a lot of standardized testing from the elementary level up through middle school and high school. And in Mexico, it's mostly just in high school, and the elementary and middle school level students do not have to take standardized tests. And lastly, one thing I learned is that school uniforms are much more common in Mexico than they are in the United States.
Okay, so hopefully this gives you some ideas about the differences. So with all these introduction and interview, SWOT analysis, and the team presentation projects, at the end of our 8th or 9th week, we will celebrate together. And here's an example of the certificate of completion. Both Professor Garcia and I will sign and put the student's name and then distribute to our students. Unfortunately, so far, because of the pandemic, we have been delivering the certificate online. Hopefully, when we get back to the normal or new normal, we will be able to meet in person, and it will be very exciting for us to distribute this to our students in person. Just because they have put a lot of effort, and we witness their growth, and we're very proud of our students. So as Professor Garcia and I have been talking about, you may find out the COIL collaboration is the key to overcome the barriers, like the different cultures, different languages, different disciplines, different times. We need to identify common platforms. Professor Garcia tried to create the Google Classroom for my students to use based on her institution. But however, for some reason, we cannot get the access. So we have to create another Google Classroom just for the COIL purpose. So both students across the countries can get access and use those. And we need to find the common technology tools for our students, and also students figure it out by themselves as well. But we need to start this plan. And it's also good to start to plan ahead of time. I think Professor Garcia and I connected in fall 2020, when Professor Garcia was introduced through her university to our university, and I was connected with her, and it took us several months to plan the first COIL project. And still now we spend the summer or the winter time way before our course offered to plan our classes and plan the materials. And it's always a continued collaboration and the ever-changing process for both Professor Garcia and I, so that we can better facilitate our students' learning. Professor Garcia, do you have anything else to add? Feel free to do so.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. I just want to mention that it was very difficult to find a good partner for COIL, for coiling. I started COIL in 2018. My first experience was not a good one, but then, well, my leader insisted, Angelica Sterling insisted in continue, and all my partners in COIL in the university told me that I had to continue even though I had not a good experience. So I spent some time looking for a partner, and I even said it was more difficult to find a partner for COIL than to find a partner for real life, but because I couldn't match with any teacher, like the way we work, their objectives, my objectives. So it was very complicated to find a partner. But my co-workers told me, once you find one, you will continue working with this one and improving. And well, it has happened. Professor Jay found me. I think she was the first one to contact me. And then, well, this is the result. It's been not easy, but it has not been so complicated as sometimes teachers think. I think it's just a matter of wanting to have the work done and do something extra to our students. And now I think it's more valuable in the difficult times we are all living. And I can tell you that I gain, not only my students gain friends, but I gain a friend as well, right? Because we have learned a lot from each other. And Dr. J has listened to me in difficult times as well. So it's just about being humans in an educational world, and being global citizens, and being, well, realize that we have the same problems with some differences, right? I think that will be it. Thank you, Professor, for inviting me and making this real.
Thank you, Professor Garcia. My pleasure as well. I think what you mentioned was just wonderful. I would like to echo this. It's my pleasure to work with you and your students. And well, it's just like finding a match. I think the teaching styles and respect to each other, everything. And also the passion of education and to support our students. I think like our students interview with the teacher, Huswei, I hope I pronounce his name right. Education is not only about the content, it's about heart to heart. I think that is so true to talk about when reflecting on our collaboration journey. With that, it comes to the end of our presentation. I think almost the end of the our workshop time. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We will be able to. We will send the conference committee our presentation PowerPoint, so you will have access to some of the links, etc. Do you have any questions for us?